Good morning, everyone. We're going to read from a book called Sina and Tinilau. The story is by Vilsoni Hereniko and illustrations are by Jasper Schreurs. This book was published by the University of the South Pacific Institute of Pacific Studies. Okay, so if you're familiar with a lot of Polynesian folklore, across many of the Polynesian islands, you'll hear a story about Sina and the eel. So I think this comes from those stories. And specifically, Vilsoni Hereniko is a Rotuman professor, also a writer. And Rotuma is right above Fiji, part of the Fijian Islands also. Okay, so the story is called Sina and Tinilau. What's also very cool about the specific book is the illustrations. So as you're paying attention to the story, look at the illustrations also, because it's very nice. Very colorful. Yeah. All right, let's begin. So once upon a time, on a lonely island in the Pacific, there lived a beautiful princess called Sina. She had long black hair which fell all the way down to her waist. Her eyes were like rock pools and her skin was as smooth as the brown cowrie shells washed onto the beach. When she smiled, which was often, a lovely dimple appeared in her left cheek. She was indeed lovelier than any other village maidens, and song composers on the island compared her smile to the brilliance of the sun or the radiance of the moon. As Sina grew up and became a young woman, word of her beauty spread to other Pacific islands such as Tonga, Samoa, Fiji, and Papua New Guinea. Many young men left their homes and paddled to this lonely island, hoping to catch a glimpse of the lovely Sina and perhaps to win her heart. So here's Sina. How pretty the illustrations are. And then on this page, it has a list of all the birds on this page. All the different birds that inhabit the islands. But all of these suitors had to return without success. Try as they might, it was impossible to get close to Sina. Some did not see her at all, for Sina's father, the high chief Telematua, forbade her to go anywhere alone. Only once each day was she alone, and this was when she went to bathe in the sea. Each morning, Sina left her house and went to the seashore where she undressed. Then she stood combing her hair until it shone in the early morning light. As soon as she entered the water, sea creatures rose to the surface. Sina would lie on her back, splashing contentedly in the waves, while for a few moments each day the sea creatures paid their respects to her. The fishes darted in and out of her long hair, the octopus tenderly wove its tentacles around her legs, and the crabs sprayed water, creating tiny ripples to caress her skin. The eel spun around and round, producing the sweetest music Sina had ever heard. But as more and more attention came her way, Sina became vain and proud. She was no longer content to have the sea creatures as her playmates and started to call them names. The octopus became Pimple-Face, while the fishes became Silly Clowns. The poor crabs who were once her friends were too clumsy to be around her, and the turtle who used to give her rides had its back scratched by Sina's fingernails. One day, Sina declared in a loud, angry voice, "I am tired of you all. Go away." The sea creatures scattered as quickly as they had appeared, for they felt ashamed of themselves. All of them, that is, except the eel. For as soon as he was about to swim away, Sina chanted, "Oh, gently, gently come, my favorite one. Rest your head upon my lap and sing to me until I nap." And so the eel stayed behind to sing for Sina. The princess thought the eel song had the most haunting melodies, and she begged him to continue singing to her until her anger had gone away and she was happy again. So included on these 2 pages are the different shells names that you can find on the beach. So if you want to look at all the different illustrations, look how pretty that is. Okay, so Sina's getting older. Now she's a little, she wants more than just friends around. She starts calling her good friends names until she met the eel, which the eel has now become more than just a friend. She sings to him now. I mean, he sings to her, sorry. Okay, so look at this cool illustration. Here's Sina. And there goes the eel singing to her. Look how happy and content she is. And look how pretty the coral reef is. All the different fishes that are listed on this page. Very beautiful. Oops, wrong page, sorry. It's coming apart. Okay. Soon, the eel became very fond of the princess and secretly wished that she were his wife. But how could this be, he reasoned. I am an eel and she is a princess. As the days went by, the eel could not contain his desire any longer. One day, in the middle of a particularly moving song, he stopped abruptly. The princess, who had closed her eyes during the song, watched as the eel wriggled over to her feet. Head bowed, the eel mumbled, "Will you marry me, princess, beautiful princess?" Sina couldn't believe she had heard correctly. Sitting up, she snapped, "Speak up, I can't hear you. What did you say?" The eel curled his tail until it was tight as a knot, and his best voice blurted out, "I want to marry you, beautiful princess." "Marry me?" cried the princess. "But you're an old and ugly, and I'm young and beautiful. Why, you're not even human." Then, gathering her long black hair around her, she waded to the shore and ran back to her house. The eel curled up into an even tighter knot and disappeared into the bottom of the sea. And there's a picture of the eel at the bottom of the sea. A very tight knot there. And then on this page also are a list of all the different marine animals. Different fish, eels. Let's turn page. The following morning, Sina returned to bathe in the sea again. There was no sign of the eel nor any of the other sea creatures. Sina pretended she was content to be alone, but after a while she became bored with her own company. For the first time, the princess realized that without the eel's sweet singing, there was no point in being where she was. She longed to hear the eel's sweet voice no more than ever before, and soon she was chanting these words. "Oh, gently, gently come, like the waves gently come. I miss your voice, your face, your smile. Oh, eel, do gently come." The princess swam out to sea, chanting her song until her voice was hoarse, but there was no sign of the eel. Sick with grief, she returned to her house and lay down, never to appear again. As the days went by, it became obvious that the beautiful Sina might die. Chief Telematua was very worried. He sent for all the wise men on the island to find a cure for his daughter, but to no avail. Each morning, just before sunrise, Sina's wailing filled the air, bringing fear into the hearts of the villagers. As the days, weeks, months passed, Sina's condition became more and more serious. At last, Chief Telematua announced that the man who was able to cure his daughter could marry her. When the young men of the Pacific heard the news, they jumped into their canoes and paddled as fast as they could to Chief Telematua's island. They came as far away as Rarotonga, Samoa, Niue, Tonga, Kiribati, Solomon Islands, and even Easter Island. But none of these hopeful men was able to bring about any changes in Sina's condition. Then one morning, just before sunrise, the ugliest human being the islanders had ever seen appeared from the spot in the area where Sina used to bathe. Where exactly he came from, no one really knew. Some thought he came from Samoa, while others thought he came from an island to the north of Fiji called Rotuma. Okay, so this page has different flowers and their names that are present here in the islands. So some of them you might find familiar or you've seen before. Hibiscus, a lot of orchids, some butterflies. Oops, sorry. So here is that creature that appears. They don't know where he came from, but they called him the ugliest living creature. Remember, the king asked for all the wise men and somebody to come in and wake to help with Sina. Okay. So this page has really cool illustrations also of different things that are found in Fiji, Solomon Islands, Papua New Guinea, Kiribati, tapa cloth, you can see, mongoose, the fruit bat, iguanas, all the different homes. The ugly stranger wore nothing but a loincloth made of tree bark around his waist and a white cowrie shell around his neck. His hair was scarlet and his face was black as charcoal. On his head he wore a garland of dry banana leaves. The stranger started to dance, slapping his chest, his thighs, and the soles of his feet in such a way that the sounds created music of their own. Then the stranger twisted and turned and cartwheeled before finally falling flat on his face. Instead of hurting himself, he slithered along the ground like an eel out of water. It was such a funny sight to see that the villagers, in spite of themselves, fell about laughing. Chief Telematua was not amused and rushed to stop the stranger who was heading towards his house. "Let me in," the stranger demanded. He appeared so self-possessed that the Chief Telematua did not dare disobey. "Don't you want your daughter to live?" Parting the curtain made of coconut leaves, the stranger knelt beside the dying Sina. Then he opened his mouth and burst into a song. "Arise, arise, arise, hear my voice, O lovely one. Join me in my song of life. Gently, gently I have come." The stranger had such a sweet voice that his singing soon brought a smile to Sina's face. Even Chief Telematua, whose club was raised to strike, listened as though bewitched. "Lovely princess, do not slip away. Hear my voice and rise, arise. Your prince has gently come." So we have different illustrations on this page of headdresses, necklaces, different things that are adorned on the islanders, different people from all these different islands. They have something from Vanuatu. They have a breastplate from Fiji on this page. So cool. By the end of the song, the fever had disappeared completely. Sina opened her eyes and the first person she saw was the ugly stranger. But she recognized the eel's voice and held out her arms. In an instant, the eel was transformed into a handsome prince. From his waist to his feet, he was tattooed in the most intricate patterns on his head. And on his head was the most colorful feather headdress. When the islanders learned that the chief's lovely daughter had recovered from her long illness, there was much feasting and dancing. The handsome stranger, Tinilau, married the beautiful Sina, and their wedding lasted 3 days and 3 nights. Sina and Tinilau lived to a ripe old age. They had many children, and the descendants of their children became the present-day islanders. Some more cool illustrations. So pretty.